Hey everybody, this is Ray Fluck, television beat writer for Bleeding Cool, coming to you with the last of our coverage of the 2018 Tribeca Film Festival. For those of you who don't know, Bleeding Cool was lucky enough to get access to this year's film festival, and we'll be giving you some coverage of some really cool things that have come out in television and film, even a little bit of gaming, which was really impressive this year. But we're going to be wrapping things up with a look at the documentary Howard, and to be honest, I think it's very fitting, and I'll talk about this in a few minutes as to why we're ending our coverage with Howard in consideration to how we began with Gilda, and I'll get to that in a minute. But let me first off by saying, just so we don't have to mince words, this is a beautiful and wonderful documentary. This is a documentary meant for people who are Disney fans, who are Howard Ashman fans, who are fans of the time period of the 80s and 90s. If you're an overall film fan, this is a beautiful, beautiful documentary in the sense that it gives you not just an understanding of what Ashman was about, but you get access to people and to interviews and to audio commentary and other things that really you celebrate the man's life, and you also hurt and pain for a life that was taken from us way, way too early. Just to give you a little background for those of you who are just familiarizing yourself with Howard Ashman, he's a lyricist behind films such as Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and The Little Mermaid. He was also the co-creator behind Little Shop of Horrors, amazing and influential musical that to this day still gets done on in high school productions, college productions, off Broadway, small theater areas. Again, I think people don't understand the cultural impact the play had even beyond the 1986 film, which again has developed such a huge cult following also. What I really liked about the film were some of the highlights about his life that they really go into detail, and I want to make sure that I touch upon some of those key points because I think they help exemplify and represent what was so quality about this documentary. We start off with some really great stories from Ashman's sister about how Ashman really was just a performer from the very beginning, using toys to put on impromptu shows for people to eventually form the WPA Theater. That is where he met Alan Menken, and for those of you who know the long, illustrious collaboration and work they've done together in a number of Disney projects and non-Disney projects. It's interesting because we go from there, and again, there's so much of this man's life we could cover. They cover from in 1982, again, Little Shop of Horrors, the fact that Ashman wrote the 1986 screenplay, which I always forget about that. But what I think it's interesting is that, when they get into the area, and this is the little nuances that we learn from this documentary. It's this idea of he learned from past mistakes. Ashman did with Little Shop of Horrors, and just did not go into the lure and the seduction of taking it big stage, taking it to Broadway, and kept Little Shop of Horrors running an off Broadway and small theater for an amazingly incredible run. And it is just, again, one of those mainstays of theater that people just love and go to and always connect with. I mean, it's Feed Me Seymour. Just how many people have uttered those lines to the point where it's just become pop culture cliche in the nicest way possible. We also get to see the time where he meets his long-term partner, Bill Launch, who offers some amazing audio commentary that just, again, really drives home the point of, there was so much more to Ashman than just a lyricist. I mean, and I say just a lyricist with quotes around it because, again, it would be like just an amazing piano player. It's just the beauty of the words and what he's done is just incredible. I like the fact that, again, and what I appreciate about this documentary is that they cover a lot of the rough spots and the not so pleasant. You get a full picture of Ashman. They talk about the debacle with Marvin Hamlisch and Smile, and interestingly enough, how that theater failure really turned into a huge career changer for Ashman, because at that point, that's when Jeffrey Katzenberg invited him to come out to Disney. And we just know the collaborations and the awards and accolades and everything else that just came from his collaboration with Disney from that point forward. And it's this one area that I specifically want to touch upon, and I think it reflects one of the major things I've taken out of this documentary is the aspect of the fact that Ashman died of AIDS at age 39, and the fact that he had kept it secret for so long, choosing only to even mention the idea of talking to Menken about it on Oscar night when they won the Oscar for Under the Sea for Little Mermaid. And days later was when Menken would find out that Ashman had AIDS. And Ashman would work up until his very last days. They mention, and Menken is mentioned certain parts too, that they would collaborate even in Ashman's hospital bed, and it just up until that very last moment. And the saddest part is that Ashman wouldn't live to see Beauty and the Beast, that last beautiful project of his, come to fruition. But one thing we do need to keep in mind is that look at all of the things that he was involved with and how much they just carry on to this day. Live action Beauty and the Beast movie, live action Aladdin. We see new Broadway productions. So it's, as much as the body in the end may not have been able to keep up the fight, it's the beauty and the words of Howard Ashman that are going to continue to live on and have such a meaningful impact. And I think that's what I really took out of this. It's this idea that it's a celebration with a little sadness. It's reality with a dose of, hey, this was an amazing life, in the sense that it reflects upon our time period. And this one of the final two things I want to mention in this review is it does an amazing job of reflecting upon a decade, especially when we look at the 80s, as a time period in which we will have to look at future generations and apologize that we let the AIDS epidemic not only just go unmentioned, go unproperly funded and researched, that we put people in such a manner that they would rather suffer with a disease they're dying from than to be able to admit it. And I think this movie made that message so strongly by not making the message so strongly. And is one of the key things that I took out of it. The other thing I took out of it too, and it's a spoiler in the sense that I know I've included it on the site, but there's just the great Jerry Orbach and Angela Lansbury recording and getting a sense of how Howard Ashman was on the set and how he was in the creative process is really just fascinating. And again, I use that as an example to say this documentary is a love letter to Howard Ashman. It is a love letter to everybody who loves film, that loves music, that loves musicals, that just loves animation, that loves Disney. It's just, I would say, required viewing for people who love film overall and who really care and know those movies. Howard Ashman was somebody whose songs were part of my growing up, my time period, and the things that meant a lot to me, and in the pop culture landscape, that means a lot, that really does. So again, I can't recommend enough the documentary Howard. If you get a chance to see it, I from my perspective, it gets major, I would say 10 out of 10 on my rating system for Bleeding Cool. Thank you guys. Again, my name is Ray Fluke, television beat writer. I know you normally find me around that area, but I do go dabbling into other areas too. But thank you guys for following all of my reviews up to this point. Really appreciate it. Please make sure you check out the rest of my Tribeca Film Festival coverage. Also, make sure you check out bleedingcool.com for a wide range of pop culture coverage, from comic books to film to television to video games to collectibles to everything and anything under the sun. Definitely make sure, bleedingcool.com. Thank you guys. Have a great Wednesday and a great rest of your week.